Turning now to shocking new revelations concerning the ongoing failure of struggling Minnesota Governor Tim Walz and his inability to get a handle on the growing welfare fraud scandal, which is now threatening to topple his entire administration. Like John Mellencamp said, the walls are going to start crumbling down. As can be expected, Walz is now facing extraordinary pressure following the recent release of a video showing a number of potentially fraudulent child care centers, which are allegedly skimming millions of dollars under his watch. And according to new reports, he's got no one to blame but himself, although he'll keep passing the buck. If it turns out that several of Walz's closest political allies were directly in charge of the state agencies which were responsible for overseeing the state's federally funded child care assistance program and making things worse, like Walz, they too ignored all the warning signs. Adding insult to injury, the individuals Walz appointed to head up those agencies were apparently more focused on expanding diversity, equity, and inclusion. Good old DEI initiatives, rather than concentrating on the matter at hand. Or furthermore, right in front of their faces. Do your jobs, man. According to official records, many of the questionable daycare centers under their auspices were owned and operated by Somali immigrants, and even though they reportedly had a number of safety violations, the Walz administration was apparently too busy to revoke their operating licenses, thus allowing the alleged fraud to go on and right under their noses. Additionally, another high-ranking Walz appointee used her top position at the Department of Human Services to help a number of freshly arrived Somali immigrants find housing, jobs, and resources, and all while the agency under her watch was forking over millions of dollars to suspected Somali fraudsters who, they were bilking the system and all behind her back. All she had to do was take that blindfold off. In the meantime, critics continue to place the blame squarely on the shoulders of Governor Walz, who they say repeatedly turned a blind eye to constant warnings that enormous fraud was taking place in his state's daycare system. Additionally, many Republican lawmakers say the problem has gone on for far too long now, and they're calling for Walz to resign for the good of the people and finally call an end to his run as state's governor. And soon maybe they'll have one of those go-away parties for the Timmer. Not a going-away party, but what we call a go-away party. Run along. Now, for their part, a number of individuals involved with questionable daycare centers are all denying the recent allegations of fraud made against them. And they say the recent viral video claiming otherwise, it was made outside of their normal business hours and that there's no fraud going on whatsoever. Sounds entirely plausible to me. As can be expected, the Walz administration now backing up those claims, and they say they've already checked out all the sites, that they didn't find any fraud taking place at all, no fooling, and that they're still planning to make a bunch of unannounced visits to see what's really authentically going on. Final thought, and this is the News Roundup Lowdown, and this is another of those stories which can be very easily explained. Now, if you know anything about Minnesota, you know that from time to time things get a bit chilly in the land of a bunch of lakes and ponds and such, and therefore, to ensure that he didn't catch a draft, Governor Walz Cakes must have thrown a wool blanket over his head to keep warm and cozy and toasty. Now, as you might imagine, blankets are kind of like sand. And when you bury your head in either, you can't always see everything that's happening all around you. Therefore, it may be the case that a few dollars here and a couple of bucks there may have gone to a group of individuals who, just like Timbo, are mildly fond of blankets made out of wool, and they sort of kind of pulled the wool over everyone's eyes. And here's the deal. Running a state, it's a bit like running a business. And while this never happens at Amazon or Microsoft or Starbucks or really any well-run outfits, maybe that was a bad example. I got to rethink that one. Therefore, in closing, I say this Tim Walz fella is doing a bang-up job. And while the state which he manages brilliantly is being investigated for $9 billion worth of fraud, I hereby proclaim that when he runs for re-election, I think he deserves another term in office. And I'm sure he'll try harder next time to rein in the fraud, the corruption, and more. And all on his watch, on account of this guy, Tim, he's a stand-up guy. Also, once again, I apologize in advance for any interruptions during today's program, but at any moment, Governor Walz may be calling in on this hotline right here to thank me for defending him. And if he does, so you know, I will be taking that call.